This camel's hump. For our first day to Whitehall, New York. See if we get there.
Okay, so I'm Dave and I've been sailing since I was 8 years old, but mostly on smaller boats. I had sailed a bit in Chesapeake Bay on a friend's 36-foot S2 and helped another friend deliver a J35 from Maine to New York City. But this 1987 Ericsson 35 was a new boat for me, and there was a learning curve ahead getting used to the boat. I had spent several weeks preparing the boat for the journey, but there was still a bit of apprehension when my wife left to drive home, 200 miles away. Anyway, onward. Our journey starts traveling south on Lake Champlain, through 12 locks on the Champlain Canal and down the Hudson River to New York City. From there, we follow the East River through Hellgate into Long Island Sound, into Buzzards Bay, through the Cape Cod Canal, and then turn north across Massachusetts Bay and into Maine. The Champlain Canal has several low fixed bridges, so we traveled down Lake Champlain with our mast down. It would have been nice to sail, but what little wind we had was out of the south and we had 69 miles to cover to get to Whitehall, so we motored along at 6.5 knots. It is really hard to overstate the beauty of Lake Champlain, with 4,000 to 5,000 foot peaks on either side.
Gorgeous here.
We enter the Champlain Canal starting at Lock 12 and try to get as far as we can. The locks close at 5 p.m. and you can't stop between Lock 4 and Lock 3. The Champlain Canal itself is about 60 miles long, and there's a nice mix of natural and constructed waterways, with plenty of things to see. Neither Captain Ben nor I had any experience with locks, so this was a new adventure. We had read much about them, so after a couple of locks, Captain Ben found that he could best control the position of the boat by grabbing a line from the lock wall at midships and pivoting the boat from there as needed. I could always push off the stern if necessary at the helm. This worked well, and we had the process down for the later locks. Lock 4 had closed when we arrived, so we spent the night on the wall outside the lock. The locks open at 7 a.m., so we started early and hit the first lock opening. It was overcast and lightning caused a 30-minute delay at Lock 2. We cleared the rest of the locks and motored down the Hudson River through Troy and Albany until we reached Catskill, New York, where we left the boat until the next weekend. The lower 140 miles of the Hudson River is actually not a river, but a tidal estuary. Tidal currents can be up to 2 knots in both directions, which can mean the difference between 8 knots and 4 knots over ground. So we had to time our travel to take best advantage of the tides. Between the canal and the Hudson River, you really do see just about everything. We spent the morning in Catskill stepping our mast. Riverview Marine Services did a great job and we were a sailboat again. With a late start and wind out of the south, we continued motoring, since it is 52 miles to Newburgh. The tide had just started to turn when we left Catskill. Captain Ben returned home after that first weekend. Captain Kurt and my daughter Meredith came aboard the following weekend for the next leg of the trip. We had a nice dinner in Newburgh, but the marina was a bit loud and rocky from boat wake and dance clubs celebrating the ebb in COVID-19, with an occasional train passing by. We woke up early to take advantage of favorable tides and continued south towards New York City, still underpowered due to the continued southerly winds. The Hudson River is great if you love trains. Trains traveled almost constantly on both sides of the river, with passenger trains traveling on the east side and freight trains traveling on the west side. Surprisingly, there was very little boat traffic on the Hudson near New York City. Captain Kurt had to catch a train the next morning and allowed us to crash at his hotel and take hot showers. Meanwhile, the boat enjoyed a wonderful view at the very nice Liberty Marina. We put the sails up for the first time in New York Harbor and sailed by the Statue of Liberty, killing time before making our way up the East River to head Hellgate at slack tide. The East River provides the pathway for tidal flows in and out of the western end of Long Island Sound. Hellgate is the area of the East River with the highest currents and can be a challenge for underpowered boats, with whirlpools, choppy water, and currents approaching 5 knots. To hit Hellgate at slack tide and have favorable currents throughout the East River traveling north, the river should be entered 1 hour and 45 minutes after low tide at the Battery on the southern tip of Manhattan. High-speed ferries, we learned, like to travel along the sides of the river, and they quickly convinced us that the center is the place to be.
Better things.
Captain Meredith.
Hi.
Sails up Long Island Sound. Directly ahead. Yeehaw! We spent the night anchored at Oyster Bay Cove, New York, a beautiful protected spot on Long Island. It was foggy for much of the day, so we didn't take many pictures or video, as we motored and then sailed to Old Saybrook, Connecticut, to meet my wife Krista and have dinner. During our journey through Long Island Sound, the boat's USB charger stopped working and our phones gradually died. My wife and daughters were tracking us by phone, so when we disappeared, they began to think we had been lost at sea. Fortunately, we were able to repair the USB charger.
How long or I don't even. Cassie. Judy. Judy. You're so cute. Yeah, he's so cute.
Got that. So now what are we looking for? West Marine.
Harbor One Marina was a beautiful stop. They even had a swimming pool. We left Old Saybrook early to time the currents through the race on the eastern end of Long Island Sound. We also had to race ahead of fog and thunderstorms on our way to Newport, Rhode Island, so we didn't take many pictures or video. We found 4-knot favorable currents through the race and entered Narragansett Bay with building wind and seas as the storms approached. The race is a 3-mile wide area where current flows quickly to fill and empty Long Island Sound from the east, just as the Sound ebbs and floods through the East River and Hellgate to the west. We met friends in Newport during the early evening and walked around the town. It was a calm, rainy night, and we left early to make the journey to the Cape Cod Canal. It was great to see Newport filled with sailboats, quite different from the other ports. was a long trip to the Cape Cod Canal, and we arrived to anchor in Finney's Harbor with guidance from my friend Captain John by phone. Currents through the Cape Cod Canal can approach 5 knots, so we woke at 4:30 a.m. to take advantage of favorable tides and then make our way across Massachusetts Bay towards Gloucester to reunite with my wife and daughter for dinner. We left Gloucester Harbor early at 6 a.m. to clear Cape Ann and take advantage of predicted southwesterly winds later in the day, aiming to reach Portland, the most ambitious leg of the trip. However, the wind and weather did not cooperate, with heavy seas on the nose, fog, and winds out of the northeast. It was clear we were not going to reach Portland, even under power, so we ducked into Newburyport Harbor. There, we met up with friends and had a great dinner. Our Newburyport friends joined us on the trip to Portland. The water can be a bit skinny in Newburyport, so we slept in a bit and left when the tide was higher. Visibility was limited, but the wind picked up for some nice sailing and we saw a minke whale. A great reception of family and friends met us in Portland.
Carrots? Carrots? Ranch. It's so good. What do you think? You should try it. It tastes good.
Captain Ben and his daughter joined us on the final leg to Boothbay Harbor. With small craft warnings in effect, the boat handled very well, stayed dry, and the passage was fast. We had another great reception in Boothbay Harbor as we surfed in on following seas into the harbor, hitting over 11 knots at times. It was a great way to end the journey and to see everyone when we arrived. Fundamentally, sailing is problem solving. To some degree, I already knew this, like finding the best wind or fixing something in the middle of a race. But it takes on a new dimension when, in addition to sails, there's an engine, transmission, plumbing, propane, and electrics, all in a moving, harsh marine environment where anything can go wrong at any time. But there lies the challenge. During this journey, the boat seemed to shrink, and we got to know her better. Familiarity breeds confidence, and perhaps more importantly, we also learned something about ourselves.